part because of so many systems using the internet to communicate, that opens a big vulnerability.
Pete, what do our national intelligence people say about this? What do the Joint Chiefs say about this? What's the National Security Council saying about this? This is huge, in my opinion.
Well, the Department of Homeland Security says that, you know, this threat. I can remember when Al Gore was in charge of cybersecurity, or in what they called infrastructure security during the Clinton administration, warning about this being a potential problem. So it is well understood. And the power industry says they're hip to it. They've done a lot over the years. But they continue to say that the more sophisticated approaches are being used and the U.S. needs to keep pace. And I talked to one former Homeland Security official today who said, candidly, this has just not gotten the attention that it needs to get. There's efforts in Congress to try to get more attention to this infrastructure protection, because these systems are not only used to control the power grid, they're used to control a lot of other quote-unquote infrastructure systems like water plants, sewer plants, and so forth. So,
they could disrupt our whole economy. They could disrupt our whole country.
That's right. So what they're saying, what many say is the federal government needs to get more involved. The industry, which has long sort of nodded its head and said, yes, 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 we get it, I think has been, I'm told, very impressed by some of what the intelligence community has told them over the past few years by the discovery of these implanted devices, these little time bombs that could be used to set something off later. They've gotten a lot more serious. The problem for power companies is, of course, they are the ones who largely own this infrastructure. It's a demand that they make a big investment in security that doesn't really pay off in the immediate range. And what I'm told is they're getting more serious about the need to spend this money. All
right, good stuff. Pete Williams, thank you ever so much. We appreciate it.
Sir.
Now, I want to talk about this China threat just a little bit more for a moment or two. Let me bring in CNBC contributor Don Luskin of Trend Macro, Quentin Hardy of Forbes Magazine, CNBC contributor Jerry Bowyer, and Jim LeCamp, RBC Wealth Management. Fellas, let's go off the path for a minute here. We'll get to the TAL failures.
Sure.
We'll get to the insurance tarping, which I think is not. Let me just talk China. Jerry Bowyer, let me go to you.
Yeah.
We had New York District Attorney Robert Morgenthau on the program last night. He just broke a Chinese money laundering scam through the New York banks, right? In order to get dough to Iran, in order to purchase WMD nuclear-related materials from China, all right? And now we hear Pete Williams in this front-page Wall Street Journal story showing how China is infiltrating our power grid.
Right.
Now, what is up with this? These guys are, in effect, waging war against the United States.
Well, I think what's up with this, Larry, is the sense that I think some other world powers like China and Russia and maybe even Somali pirates have this sense that maybe America is a declining power. I think they're dead wrong. And in the case of the Somali pirates, I think they're going to be dead and wrong soon. But there's this, we're sending out the signals, our elites, our public discussion, we're sending out the signals that we are challengeable. And so we're going to be challenged in lots of different ways. I think that they're making a bad bet. I think that America is going to get through its current troubles. But I think there's a kind of a global sense that America is a declining power and that they can come after us and get away with it.
I got to whip around, get all of you in here. Quentin Hardy, you live next door to China out there in Silicon Valley. It's just a small pond separating you out.
We got a little lake, yeah.
And I just want to ask you, because, again, you know, President Obama is negotiating with Russia about Iran. Okay, fine, you got to do that.
Right.
But it's China. It's China that is selling them the materials to build nuclear weapons and trying to launder money through our banks. And here we go again, China and, yes, Russia, infiltrating the power grid, which could close down the whole bloody country, for God's sakes. What are we going to do about this, Quentin? What does this mean to you?
Larry, my first question is, do you think for a minute we haven't done the same thing inside the Chinese grid and the Russia grid? Because if we haven't, we should.
I have no evidence of that, Quentin. None whatsoever.
But the
Has
fact
there been
is,
one
that's
single report on that? So what, you're saying tit for tat is okay?
No, I'm saying that you have to look at this in world historic economic terms. And frankly, the Internet crosses boundaries. Nations have to respect the fact that this thing breaks all the boundaries down, and you can get into somebody else's grid. You think historically the Nazis wouldn't have done this, or the Vietnamese wouldn't have done this, or any of our enemies wouldn't have done it, and we'd have to have countermeasures, and we'd be doing the same thing to them to stop them from doing it to us? Mutually assured economic destruction? I mean, we should be inside their grid if they're in ours, right?
Well, I don't know if that's right, Jim LeCamp. Let me go to you, and I want to get Don Luskin in here because, look,
We're not at war. Why should we be in each other's grids?
Well, that's the thing.
We have missiles. We don't launch them. But they haven't launched this software.
You're making a comparison with the Internet. That is a free speech issue, Quentin. That has nothing to do with infiltrating the domestic power grid of a nation, which has economic and national security implications.
Larry, how did they get into the grid? Through the Internet. Everything is connected now. These are strategic elements.
All right, let me get this here. Jim LeCamp, you first, then Don Luskin's coming up. Give me some comments, Jimmy.
Yeah, here's the problem. We're selling all of our debt to China, and so they have us over a barrel. Even if we wanted to do something about it, there's nothing we can do about it.
Does that mean we have to lay down like a sleeping giant? What are you saying to me? Because they own our treasury bonds, we have to let them walk all over us and what? Finagle cash through our banks to sell nuclear weapons to Iran and to erupt the power system because they own treasury bills? That's the worst thing I've ever heard. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Jim LeCamp.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we got to put ourselves in a position not to be beholden to them, not to issue so much debt. We got to protect our natural resources. They're around the world buying all the natural resources in the world. We won't even let our own companies drill offshore, and yet we're asking them to buy all our debt. We don't need to be that deep in bed with these people.
All right, Don Luskin, let me come to you. You may not be here, but I got to tell you, at some point in this conversation, the United States government, I don't care who the president is, Democrat, Republican, has to stand tough and tall in the saddle with China. The fact that they own some treasury bills unimpresses me. I don't care about that. We have to do something. That statement should be issued about this Chinese sale of weaponry to Iran and about this electric grid stuff. What do you think here? When's the United States going to stand up here?
Larry, first of all, we have to find out if it's true. There are all kinds of things that are reported in the paper that aren't true. But if it is true, you are absolutely right. It's an act of war. We have to start responding as such. We have to push back against this aggression. And the way to do it is not at all to take some realpolitik view that we need to be doing it to them. It's not to worry about treasury bills. It's to treat this as an act of aggression, just like the Soviets putting missiles into Cuba in 1963. We should act just the same way, period.
Good for you. Good for you. You see, Quentin, we have to be tough on this, Quentin. We can't just let them roll. Look, what we know is true is the Morgenthau prosecution, a 118-count criminal indictment, laundering money in order to sell nuclear-related materials to Iran. We know that's true. I suspect this front-page story is true.
Larry, that's got fingerprints. You won't find who in China did this. Who are you going to complain to? You don't know if the government did it.
And don't forget the Korean rocket that was launched last week. That's a client state of China. That's another act of aggression.
Yep. You know, the handwriting.
That's a missile.
That's a government act.
You can't prove this was done by the government. Who are you going to take on?
Yes, but you can make statements at the governmental level, and you can force some kind of discussion here, even if it's a tough or confrontational discussion. In other words, my point is a simple point. We have to do something to show the flag, wave the flag, and let them know that the United States is a great power. That is what I'm saying. You guys stay right where you are. We have a whole agenda of issues for you coming.